welcome to the Art of Being Human. We're dealing with the self-concept of young children, and I want to start off today by reviewing a book. This is a wonderful, wonderful book, and it's written by Nancy Carlson, and it's called I Like Me. And the thing that I like about it, I like most children's books anyway, but what I like about it is that it allows a child to feel good about themselves even when they make a mistake. So I want to go through this with you some, and on the back of it, there's kind of an inscription. I'm going to read that off to you first, and it says, I like me. It's important to feel good about yourself and take care of yourself. That's what this book is all about. So let me start. This is the cover, I Like Me, and it's about this little pig who really likes herself. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will give you enough input on it. This is, I have a best friend. And the best friend, of course, is me. I have a best friend. The best friend is me. Let me see. Let me just flip over a little bit here. I do fun things with me. I draw beautiful pictures. I ride fast. Here she's on a bicycle. I ride fast, and the pictures are very nice to look at as well. And I read really good books with me. So she's talking about how much fun she has with herself and how she likes herself. I like to take care of myself. I brush my teeth. Whoop. I keep clean. I eat good food. When I get up in the morning, I say, hi, good looking. I love my curly tail. I love my round tummy and my tiny little feet. When I feel bad, and here's a picture, she's looking out of the window, and unfortunately it's raining out and she's sad. So when I feel bad, whoops, it continues, I cheer myself up. When I fall down, I pick myself up. When I make mistakes, I try and try again. No matter where I go or what I do, I'm always going to be me, and I like that. So here's this book. It's about this little pig. I like things about me. I like the way I look. I like the way that I take care of myself. I eat good food. If I do make a mistake, I just change it. If I fall down, I pick myself up. So there is room, there's wiggle room for not being perfect. And then she tries until she does it right, and she still likes herself in the end. Now that's the kind of message I think that we need to give to young children. You're not going to do everything all right, but that's okay. Well, what about older children? What about dealing with older children? What if they're about to make a real critical mistake? I had in my office once when I was a college professor, and I usually did not deal with high school kids. I dealt with college kids. But when I had a child come to me, as her mother brought him, he was going to take LSD. He was taking LSD, excuse me for a moment. And I had to get him off the LSD because he was going to ruin his life with it. So how did I do it? I did not yell. I did not scream. I did not accuse. Because, you know, if you try to tell a person not to do something, what's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to do what you tell them not to do, especially a teenager. So I knew what the problem was. She told me what the problem was. I saw this child, this boy. He was delightful. And I brought in some books that explained what LSD does to your body. And I explained to him that it is a hallucinatory drug and what it does to you and why you have the hallucinations. It's a hallucinogenic drug, and why it works and how it mimics the brain's neurotransmitters, so the brain gets confused and sends all of these signals out. It triggers the brain to do certain things. I explained it all. I had diagrams. I had examples. I had it all right there. And I did it basically to scare him without raising my voice, without calling him names like this is stupid, don't do it, you know. Without doing any of that stuff, I talked to him just in a gentle way. And then I said, the choice is yours. I know I can't stop you from taking this drug. But if you take this drug, you need to know what's going to happen to you. You need to have all the information as to what's going to happen to you if you take it. Then you can make a reasonable choice. Well, he stopped taking the drug. He wasn't going to take it anymore. So I had a lot of success. So when you're dealing with people making choices, you don't tell them this is wrong, although sometimes you can. It depends how related you are to them, but it's better for you to educate them and let them make their own choice. But you give them fair warning that once they make their choice, if it's the wrong choice, they can't necessarily take it back. Now, I've seen an ad on television about a young man who was using drugs. He was using prescription drugs, and as a result of that, he had such brain damage that he could no longer take care of himself. And he is like in a wheelchair or a gurney and making all kinds of gestures with his hands. He cannot take care of himself. He cannot speak. And his parents says, we're fortunate because we still have him. Well, I think that the point is, you know, he doesn't have any quality of life as far as I'm concerned, but he is alive. And as long as he is alive, his parents will take care of him. So they're fortunate in the sense that he didn't die, but in terms of what he can accomplish, he can't. But the point is, parents need to talk to their children about drugs, not just opioids, but prescription drugs, which get overused too. So there are ways of handling things, and the best thing that you can do when you're dealing with a child, either adult or young child, is don't do it in anger. If you do it in anger, they hear the anger, but they don't hear the message you're giving with it. I've heard parents scream at their children, I told you not to do this, you did this, and they become frightened of the screaming. They become frightened of the noise, but they don't get the message that the parent is giving them. Better to take him to one side and say, you know, I have told you not to do this. Now you've done it, and you have to suffer the consequences of it because this is what's going to happen. And you, in a very, very reasonable, not loud voice, explain to them what's going to happen. I told you you can't do that, and now you're restricted. You can't go out of the yard for a week or something like that, whatever the consequences are, and you hold to it. You have no power over a child if you don't hold over them. Well, if you tell them you're going to do something, you've got to be faithful and do it. They can't manipulate their way out of it. And parents need to stick together on this. So that's how you would handle it. But from a very young child, which is what I'm dealing with here, it's most important that you handle them with kindness, with firmness, with love, and let them know that you love them even though they're making mistakes, and that it'll be okay. Most mistakes you can recover from. Most mistakes you can take care of yourself with, and you'll grow up and you'll be okay. So, you know, self-concept is critical because if you have a bad self-concept when the child is very young, and that does not get resolved, he grows up, he feels he's not worth anything, he feels nobody likes him, and what you get is massive school shootings and everything like that because they never felt understood, they never felt accepted, they always felt bullied. And as a result of that, that turns into helplessness, and helplessness will always turn into rage. You know, just remember that. Helplessness turns into rage. So if a child feels that they have no choices, They're not going to be able to make any progress. They're going to be sullen, and they're going to think about this. They're going to get angrier and angrier and angrier. And then they feel helpless because they don't feel they can do anything about it, whatever the situation is. And then they take it out in rage. They just explosively get rid of it. And I think that's what happens in some of the violence that we see in schools and in the communities today. So I think that you have to agree with me that having a healthy self-concept, starting it off in a young age, is going to be critically important. Now I want to move on for this. We have gone through the preschool age, and let's see. We are now talking about we've gone past the toddler age. I want to give you some more information on the preschool age in terms of their thinking and their perceiving. They think on a very concrete level. When they're like going into kindergarten, they think on a very concrete level. Dog, cat, color, baby, and later on they can think about the attributes. Well, the dog is brown, the chair has 4 legs, things like that. But in terms of their thinking, it's very concrete when they're young. Then they start thinking about, well, dogs can bark and cats can meow. At the end of the preschool age, the child can categorize things. Some things are animals, some things are plants, some things are insects. They can always do that. But children who are retarded are not going to be able to categorize, but most children will be able to do that. Now, in terms of their language structure, this actually gets to be humorous sometimes because preschool children change their language or put extensions on their language so that it makes sense to them. And if you think about it, it'll make sense to you too, but it may be a little humorous. For example, the opposite of being okay is no-K. That means you're not okay, no-K. Well, doesn't that make sense when you stop to think about it? If you're asking a child if they're behaving, they can say, I am so behave. So what does it mean? Yes, I'm behaving. I'm doing the right thing. I am so behave. One child said that the truck was busying up the road so they couldn't get through. Well, that makes sense too when you stop to think about it. And one child said, I like to secret around in the night. In other words, I like to go out at night. I like to walk around the house at night. Another one was, the big dog is walking down the small street. Now, this would be in a young child's book where they're trying to teach them differences in sizes and they're teaching them to read. And the little child said, what a stupid thing to put in a book. So that's a quote. The big dog is walking down the small street, and the child says, what a stupid thing to put in a book. Children can't be bothered by inconsistencies. They don't understand inconsistencies. They're too young. They don't know what real is and what's not real. What happens is if you read them a story, the little old lady lived in a shoe and she had so many children she didn't know what to do. You understand that story? That's a fairy tale. They actually think it's real. There is a lady somewhere that's living inside of a shoe. And she has so many children living with her in that shoe that she doesn't know what to do. Children cannot tell the difference between what's real and what's not real. They're just incapable of doing it. If you have a child that has some cognitive issues and they're watching television, if they're watching soap operas, they don't know the difference. They think the soap opera is real. They'll be yelling at the TV, well, this person did this or this person did that. They don't understand it's just a story. You know, they can't tell the difference. Now, preschoolers cannot understand the sequencing of things. What comes first? What comes second? What's the result of something else that came before it? They just can't do that. And they don't understand sometimes the language. Like they'll say, it can't be today, Mommy said it was Monday. So they don't catch the fact that Monday and today might be the same way. As they're learning and as they're growing, that'll just come to them. But at a young age, it doesn't come to them. By age 4, they start to realize that there are sequences in things. This comes before that. And they start to understand it, but they have to be about age 4. Now, they have spatial concepts. They have to learn spatial concepts, and there are 5 different types of spatial concepts that they're going to learn, so I'm going to list them off. There's action space. That's the location of things. This camera's over here. This desk is over here. There's body space, distances in relation to the body. That door is further than that camera, so you can get a relationship in the distances between things. Then there's object space, objects in relation to each other. This chair is over here, the couch is over here, and they start to see differences there. Then there's map space. This requires more deep thinking. When you start to think in terms of distances between roads, distances between towns, and things like that, that comes at a little later age. And then you have abstract space. When abstract space, you are actually studying things like geometry, space science, planets, and things like that. So those are the levels of the different types of spatial concepts that children will grow into. Now, in the preschool time, the number concepts are changed too. They learn the difference between big and small. Then later on they can count, but they don't understand dimensions. For example, a tall glass is always going to have more in it than a short, wide one. Although that's not always true. They just look at it. This is tall, this is bigger, it has more in it than the short one. And I've talked to children who think that a nickel is always worth more than a dime because it's bigger. And you can't get them to realize that the size of the coin is not an indication of how much it's worth. So if you have a nickel and it's bigger than a dime, then the nickel is worth more. Now, it takes some intelligence and reasoning to be able to figure out that that's not necessarily true, but that's the way it is. Children think of cartoons as being alive, and this is the danger. If you have a child that's watching cartoons, what do? They bop each other over the head with some kind of a board. They run, they jump out, and you can't do that in real life. But they think of it as being real because they do not understand the differences between what is real and what is not real. But gradually they learn the difference between them. But it has to come with age. Children confuse feelings and sounds. Now, last segment I read off a little boy who said, well, my thoughts are in my throat, my words are in my throat. What kind of space do they take? And how can I eat food if my throat is filled up with words that I say? So you see, these concepts, they're really quite advanced. And for a little child, they have to grow into an understanding of them. Now, nursery school, I want to mention nursery school. It's usually a help, and because it teaches children how to deal with pressure. It teaches children how to deal with each other. They learn social adjustments. It's kind of important. But I don't approve of mandating that every child go to school all day during kindergarten. This state has a law that's been passed, and if they can fund it all right, then all children will have to go to kindergarten all day. I don't approve of that. I think a parent should make their choice. Some children it's all right, and some children it's not. They're not mature enough for it. And the parent should know, and the parent should be able to make the decision. I know that if I had a small child and I didn't think it was ready to separate from me for a full day, I would fight to keep it at home. I'll only go for part of a day. 2 hours in the morning might be all the child can take. So that's something we're going to have to grapple with as this law starts to take effect. Well, I'm going to close it here, and we'll continue with this next week. Please join me then.